Hello, welcome back to Thrive Yoga Fit Transformational Coaching. This is Erin, and I am back talking about the Yoga Sutras and the Yamas and Niyamas, which the Yamas and Niyamas come from the Yoga Sutras. So last week I ended right at the cutoff point for the Yamas into the Niyamas, where we make the transition of the outer world into the more refined inner world, though you can go up and down the rungs or branches of the Yamas and Niyamas and find a way to apply them in your life, find a way to use them in conjunction with one another using your own discernment, which is viveka. And I talk about that a lot. And I was listening to the Yoga Sutras by Nikolai Bachman, and I was, on my walk this morning, and he said something that was so simple and yet profound that I noted where he talked about this, and I paused it and I sent it to one of my teachers, and then I waited. I was meeting my friend Stephanie. Hi Stephanie, if you listen to this. And I said, oh, I have this thing you need to listen to. And she listened to it and she thought, that's brilliant. But he talks about how the overall objective is to have this constant discernment, which is viveka kyatir. And, our union is yoga to yuj, right? But maybe that's the foundation through which we can start to use these more advanced tools. So we have certain yogic tools that we use to come into union with ourselves and mind, body, spirit. And then once we're there, what do we do? Well, then maybe the journey of a yogi is from that space of union that you start to develop this discernment to where you are questioning things in your life and you make your own path. Not to say that you're just, wild thing that doesn't have any community. Of course you do, but you're a self-starter, you're a self-healing advocate, and you are on your own path. And sometimes you have gurus that you follow to a certain point, but you don't follow blindly. And you use, again, this sharpened inner discernment. And when we have unbroken discernment, this is called viveka kyatir. So I wanted to just share that because it's a recent again, Nikolai Bachman, he has quite a few yoga books out there, and luckily he has some wonderful things on Audible, which I definitely need to get on. Maybe I'll make that a goal this year. So we left off with the niyamas, and the first niyama is shaucha. One of my YTTs is brilliant. Sometimes you hear saucha, and sometimes you hear shaucha. What I've heard more consistently is shaucha, and when I've seen it written in Sanskrit, it has that little dot, which would lead me to believe the sh sound, so shaucha. And she said, shout it out, like the little spray detergent that you use on your clothes. I mean, it's filled with toxic stuff. Now that I'm older, I realize that, but everybody knows what it is, at least if you're in America. So shout it out, shaucha, purity. So leads us to purity. So purity of the body, but also of the mind. And this process of taking inventory and noticing if what you're focusing on is pure. So we have this aspect within us called purusha. Purusha is the clean, pure consciousness that exists within all of us. And then we house it in this body, and then we have this mind, and our mind is chitta. So chitta has 3 different parts. I can go into that later. But the chitta, when it's housed inside of the body, sometimes it gets kind of sticky and it can stick onto the purusha. And so after that, because we have these vrittis that are stuck to the chitta, if that makes sense. So your mind in its sense is a tool, but it gets vrittis stuck to it. So then it becomes chitta vrittis, which is distortions. Right? So the mind likes to, it questions, it picks up on things like a little Swiffer, just kind of collects all the dust. It's like, ooh, but then we're like, I can't see past the dust. So it's really important to do our yogic cleansing practices, whether it's Shat Kriya or, meditation, yoga asana, questioning things. Like this helps to keep our discernment sharp, and it helps us to keep uncovering this purusha. Though certainly to be like a householder yogi and to be active in the world, chances are you're going to accumulate some dust, and just making sure that you have your practices in a line and in routine, and having the discipline, which I'll talk about, that's one of the niyamas, to keep that aspect of you as clear as one can, right? Of course, it's never going to be 100% clear unless you've hit in some higher levels of samadhi to where you're just constantly in this space of ultimate union and discernment. So Shaucha invites us to, witness ourselves and just see if we can be more in alignment with what is pure and good for us. So on the physical level, again, using discernment, like what feels good in my body. So for example, I woke up this morning and I had like a weird appetite. I was like kind of hungry, kind of not. I was like, well, I should maybe have something. And so I got these olives last night from Fresh Market, not Fresh Garden. It's like Olive Garden and Fresh Market combined, Fresh Market. And I was craving some olives. So I had a few of those. It's very good. And my body liked that. And then there's a little bit left over of a Cliff Bar from last night. I was like, okay, let me try some of that. It was in the fridge, so I had a piece. I noticed after the olives, my body was like, yes, like it felt good, like healthy fats, like keep the skin nice, lubricate the organs, awesome. And I noticed after the Cliff Bar, at least for that point for my body, because I hadn't worked out, like Sunday, I kind of take it easy. I went for a walk with my friend for about an hour, but it's pretty low key. So I didn't have a lot of like this big, fire in my belly to kind of like, burn off any of the impurities, because the Cliff Bar is a processed food, whereas the olive is kind of like an olive's really an olive. So depending on, where you get it from, if it's, raised with pesticides or what have you. So but these were pretty pure. So I noticed when I ate the Cliff Bar that my stomach was like, I don't know, like little tiny bubbles or just like a little bit of disapproval. And so, purity is something that, again, if you apply what I think is one of the main goals or main goal of yoga, which is that inner discernment from a grounded space with union of consciousness in the heart space, then we are able to determine what is the right thing for us in the moment. And sometimes a Cliff Bar, like for me, after a Kalari Payatu practice, martial arts, dripping sweat, body is heated up, something like that, my body will eat it right up. No problem. On a morning when, it's like post-birthday shenanigans, my body was like, I'm learning. So I was like, okay, well, that didn't really work out. I only had a small bit, so it's fine. It's not like, no harm done. But then I try to, stay in alignment with what my body wants, what is pure for it, and just notice. If we bring it into the mind, then we can determine, okay, what thoughts am I choosing that are making me feel what way? Is this good for me? Is this in alignment with Shaucha? So, for example, I have fearful avoidant attachment, and sometimes with friendships and with especially my romantic partner, I have doubt that comes up, and I think of packing my bags and leaving. And the thing is, I can objectively try to look at this and recognize it as a deep ingrained pattern of having to be independent and making sure that I'm taken care of, that I'm like taken advantage of, all these different things that are set. And that's very deep. That's going to take a long time to uproot. And I witness it and I try to do my best, right? I'm a human just like everybody else, and I'm trying to study myself, and sometimes things get in the way. But I'm always trying, maximum try all the time. So sometimes that stuff comes up and then my discernment is off. And I really have to question. That's why questioning comes up. Erin, what are you running away from? What is really going on here? Like what's actually wrong here that you feel the need to jet? And it's good that I have those things in place, because a lot of times when I get down to it, I'm like, I don't really have a good answer. So Then I realized that's an old pattern. So then in the spirit of xiaocha, purity, I would, okay, how can I hop back into gratitude and look at all the things that I do have? I think for someone who engages in the world as much as I do, and, I try to consciously do that, I work with a lot of people in a lot of different realms, coaching, yoga therapies, certifications, programs, even holistic nutrition, which is something that I'm being a little bit more public about. By the way, I do facial analysis. If you're listening to this and you're familiar with Tim Goyetch, if not, listen to one of the podcasts I've done with him, because he does a beautiful job of explaining, the profoundness of the work that he does. So if you're interested in me reading your face and doing a whole holistic lifestyle assessment, I do that in the initial consult as $199, and then after that I don't charge for the consult as long as you stay within treatment with me. So anywho, so purity. So purity, physical, mental, and then purity of what's going on as a result inside of your body. So all of this takes discernment and awareness. Sati, which is awareness, and viveka and vitarka, which is reasoning capabilities. So we have xiaocha, then we have santosha. Santosha is gratitude. Santosha is contentment. So when we're in gratitude, we're content, aren't we? I'm so grateful for everything I have. Wow, I have, just looking down at my Yoga Sutras book by Edwin Bryant, and I have so many translations of the Yoga Sutras. I have a life where I can afford that. I have awesome people that draw beautiful Ganeshis for me, like Kuhat over here. I have a whole empire of Thrive Yoga and Fitness to try to warp myself out of the way. If you ever have a cat sleeping next to you, if you're watching this on video, I kind of did a weird thing with my body. But if you're ever sleeping in a bed next to a cat, you can't disturb the cat and they just lay it on you however they want. So you kind of Tetris yourself around them. So anyways, I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for my cats. I'm grateful that I have a lot of people that love me. This kind of just opens you up, and when you have gratitude, you're blessing all the things in your life, right? You're blessing, not just skimming over them. You're let me take a little pranam, a little moment of gratitude, of lowering my ego, of bowing down and listening to the wisdom of my heart, and it will tell you gratitude. So it's important to have santosha, because otherwise the mind is always wanting to want, just to want. I love this story, so I'll share it. It's an old one. If you listen to my podcast, I've told this one a few times, but it's so cute. So I used to have a little Yorkshire Terrier, and her name was Cinnamon. And, those dogs are very codependent. But it was cool at that time of my life. It was great. She now is with my ex-partner, and they keep each other company, which is very, very nice. But, she would always be interested in what I was doing. And the one day I was just eating a pickle, and she was like, "Barf." And I was like, "What, you want some of the pickle?" And she's just like, "Barf." Yes, I want some of the pickle in Yorkie. So I said, all right. So it's okay, well, I'll give you some pickle, I guess, if you want. So I broke off a little piece, and she smelled it, and then she kind of touched it with her paw, and then she lost interest, and then she looked up at me, saw me eating the pickle, and then barked at me again, like she wanted another piece. And I was like, you didn't even like it. You just want more just to want. And you're just wanting to want. And I was like, isn't that the brain? So it's we're always wanting to want, just to want, right? And I discussed in the Niyamas about non-excess, which is brahmacharya, or you can think of that as celibacy or reigning in a vital energy. And then aparigraha, which is non-greed or only taking what you need. So a little Yorkie might not have that ability to discern the way that we do, but she just wanted the pickle, probably because she maybe just wanted to be involved in the process. Who knows? I don't know what was going on in her head exactly. I can only guess. And so Santosha invites us to, be grateful for what we have, and, also bless the things that we have in our life already. And just to, when we're content, we're in certain ways taking action less, meaning you're conserving your energy, because you recognize that you're creating your own happiness and that happiness is not outside of you. And that's really important. Again, older story, but still a good one. Publix is a grocery store chain here in Florida, and I think it exceeds beyond Florida. But I remember seeing an advertisement sign in the bakery in Publix, and it said, "Happiness is a cupcake." And I was like, oh, wow, brilliant marketing. Because in that moment, a pink cupcake, perfect with the frosting and the tip, it's just like, it confuses the mind. The mind, the senses, or like the manas of the brain is like, yes, a cupcake. Of course, that's happiness, right? And we kind of forget ourselves in that moment, like, all of a sudden, santosha is gone. It's gone. Like it would be, just completely swept underneath the rug. And all of a sudden, we're drawn by our senses, drawn by that cupcake. But then we eat the cupcake, and maybe we get some temporary gratitude for that and contentment, and then the sugar kicks in, the chemicals alter our brain chemistry, and then all of a sudden we're in wanting again, right? So we've lost santosha. Now, not to say a cupcake once in a while is a problem. It's certainly not, but it's certainly us thinking that our happiness comes from outside of ourselves is really setting ourselves up to be too attached to things. And part of the yogic path is vairagyam, to know who you are without these things. It's important. So that is santosha. And then we go into tapas, tapasya. So tapasyans are people who really dedicate themselves to a spiritual art, and or you can say a sadhaka, someone that has a daily discipline that they show up for, and that is, how they funnel their spirituality, or maybe one of the ways. So tapas is, I like to describe it as sitting in the fire of your own emotions, or sitting in the fire of a challenge, choosing to show up for it, and allowing that, the challenge of it, the burning, the discomfort, to have a kind of purifying effect on you. So it can go in alignment with shaucha and tapasya. I am using this challenge to purify, meaning like burn off some of the layers of the chitta vritti, like let go of some of the stuck energy in the head. So then again, the purusha, the consciousness, is not covered, and then you can move forward in life from that space. Certainly when we do that, then our viveka is much more sharp, our discernment. And if we continue on that path, then we develop viveka kyatir, which is the continuous ability to discern. And that comes from the basis of yuj, yoga, to bring into union our mind, body, spirit, or as Nishala Joy Devi would say, as 1.2 of the Yoga Sutras, is yoga's chitta vritti nirodha, which is yoga is the joining of consciousness in the heart space. And keeping it there, once it's studied, then we see reality as it truly is. So tapas, like having certain challenges in our life, is so important. If we don't have appropriate challenge in our life, the mind becomes stale, it gets stuck energy. It's important to have challenge to tame the ego too. Yeah, if we're too, thinking we're so good at everything and nobody can beat us, like you need to get knocked down on your ass. I'm sorry. So martial arts is so great with humbling people, because there's always someone that's going to knock you on your ass, and then, oof, okay. How do you deal with that? Do you throw a little tantrum, or do you say, you taught me something, like now let me learn, let me be the student. And yoga asana, great way to do it, because there's certain poses that like, oh, wow, that is near impossible for me. Why? And then getting curious about it, and getting curious and committing to studying yourself. That is part of tapas as well, is like adopting a mindset that is sustainable to where you can sit in the fire with yourself, to where you can, show up for these challenges and not get in your head too much or make a mountain out of a molehill. Challenges are challenges. Everyone needs to have challenge in their life. So if we make it like the magnitude is too much, it's just too much, I can't handle this. Then you're going to hide in your life. You're not going to take appropriate risk. And some level at the end of the day, you're going to be unsatisfied with yourself. You're not living your dharma. So tapasya invites us to stand in the fire of our own emotion, of our own experience, choose to show up. And try to have a good attitude about it. Because a good attitude is sustainable. Having more sattvic mind, more like pure, like in alignment, a fluid type of mind that's sattvic. And again, we tie in, shaucha, which is purity, more pure mind, and then santosha, being grateful for the process. If we're grateful for our challenges, it makes it more sustainable. We bless the challenge, and it can unlock faculties within us, as Patanjali would say. So we have shaucha, santosha, tapas, and then we go into swadhyaya. Swadhyaya is self-study. According to Nishala Joy Devi, there are 3 aspects of self-study. One is introspection, so questioning things, heightening that viveka. 2 is reading of spiritual scripture. Certainly when we have inspiration from our gurus, which, a book can be a guru, then it helps us to guide us on our path, right? Guru is darkness remover. So when we're feeling too much tamas, too much inertia, too much dark to the light, we need the balance, seek a guru. And that's nothing wrong with that. But at a certain point, even you want to question some things about your, about your path, and make sure you're checking in with yourself to make sure that's right for you. And then the final one is being in nature, which is, we are of nature. It makes sense. And being in nature, like just imagine barefoot in the forest or standing in the grass, there is the electromagnetic frequency from the earth that recalibrates you. It is beyond the mind, but there is such a wisdom to that. The earth, if you think that we're complex, look at everything that happens on earth and how they all have a synchronicity to them. And just like mycelium is such a beautiful and amazing substance. The sort of network of, it's like, almost like nerve endings that are within the soil, to where trees and bushes and fungi and all these, it's like this living electrical panel in the earth. And it's all like exchanging data and even exchanging nutrition and all this stuff. Just beautifully gorgeous. Well, we are of that. And a lot of times we separate ourselves and we forget. We're like, nah, I'm not that. Bitch, yes, you are. Yes, you is. So, yes, we are of the earth. We are of the elements. And so going back into nature helps us to understand ourselves more, helps us to reconnect to the more simple parts of us. And, when things are simple, when the chittavrittis have settled, then we can taradrashtu swarupevasana, and we can see reality as it really is and abide in our true nature, which is joy. So swadhyaya. I can go a little bit more into swadhyaya, but I'll just touch on maybe one more thing. Being able to quiet the mind enough to where we can study ourselves. Really important on the path of a yogi. On the path of any spiritual being, we need to be able to become aware of our patterns so that we can have accountability. If we just think that life is attacking us, or, I need to control my environment to this extent and control these people, it's not sustainable, and it's certainly violent in a way that we demand that the world bow down and change to us. Well, not necessarily. Certainly to engage with someone, you can have boundaries, you can have certain needs to be met in communication, but to demand that people and the earth serve you, no, absolutely not. People don't comply, and the earth will do what the earth does, which is continue just spinning on its axis and giving us great support and wisdom if we're open to it, and lessons. So the last niyama is Ishvara Pranidhana, which is, Ishvara is the God source. So Ishvara Pranidhana is recognizing that there's a bigger force at work, and being humble enough to accept that you are a part of it, and to let go of the ego, to, which you need your ego sometimes, but you don't want your ego to rule you. If your ego is ruling you, and you are too overly associated with your body, with your thoughts, with your belief systems, with your traumas, all these things, you become them. It's not you really become them, but it's like, imagine that you dressed up for Halloween and you're like, wow, this is cool. I'm a pumpkin. I'm a pumpkin. So I got like green tights and like a orange outfit. I even have like the green little hat. I am a pumpkin. And that night you embodied a pumpkin. You're like, beautiful pumpkin. And then the next day you're like, I'm still a pumpkin. And then years later, I'm a pumpkin. Like, you're going to start putting yourself into this small kind of ridiculous box because you just believe you're a pumpkin. You start doing pumpkin things, which is, I don't know, I guess sitting there growing, maybe eventually evolving into a jack-o'-lantern. So, if we play certain roles in our lives, so beyond the very simple example I gave. So let's say you are a teacher. Right? I'm a teacher and I love being a teacher. That is a role that I play. That is not who I am. And it is obnoxious if you've ever been around someone who just cannot take that hat off and they just always need to be a teacher. And they never switch to being in the role of a student. They never just become a friend. Like, that's obnoxious. I do not want you showing me how to, correct my alignment or, I don't know, do my taxes properly or something, like all the time. Sometimes I just want to be in the present moment and I don't want to receive that. So that's an example of if we are stuck in these roles and we're not sort of letting them go and surrendering to this sort of deeper force inside of us. To know who you are without those things is so important, because then you can more fully step into those roles without a bunch of dust and tarnish around it. You can see more clearly, yes, I am not this, but I am stepping into this role. So less pressure. Who wants to be a teacher all the time anyway? I love being a student. And then, sometimes I really have to step into a leadership teacher role, especially with all the things that I do. But when I do it, I own it, because I know that there's times where I step out of it and I just frolic through the woods and I'm a big goofball. Like this morning, my friend Stephanie got me a giant bubble wand and she's like, of all of my adult friends, I knew that you would play. And she's like, here you go. And she even got it like a red handle because she associates me with the color red, which is power, which is just super cool, awesome friends. So stepping away from these roles is really important, because if we become overly associated with them, they can become toxic. There's some times where we have a big illness come up like cancer. And then, you need to really focus on that. But if you don't step away from it and realize that you're more than that, you become too associated with it. And then bad things happen. So even yoga, I consider myself to be a yogi, meaning I use yogic tools, but I am not at my core essence, really anything except for consciousness. But saying that, I realize how attached I am to that role of being a yogi. So, but practicing detachment, asking questions, I do this podcast because it's like a very public diary for me. And, some of my episodes, I feel like my last episode on the Niyamas, I was a little stressed out and I don't think I went into as depth. Well, this one is twice as long as that one. So that's one sign. But, those of you who accept me and love me and see me as just, a person who is choosing to show up. The thing is that not all of them are perfect. And what I've learned in actually a full decade of doing this podcast is that sometimes I need to show up how I am, and it can't be perfect. And my people who follow me, I think that they accept that part of me, and maybe they even appreciate, it's a breath of fresh air, that I'm not perfect all the time. And so, that's Ishwara too. Ishwara Pranidhana is, sometimes I'm a little bit more tarnish on me. I've had a busy week, but I still choose to show up. That's tapas, right? I have good intention. So that's shaucha. I find contentment, it doesn't have to be perfect, santosha. I am questioning things constantly and studying for you all, swadhyaya. So I am practicing these yogic techniques constantly, and you can see just maybe from my examples that how they can play together, how they can play separate, and ultimately how they can help you to live life skillfully. So this podcast is a second installment of the 8 Limbs of Yoga. And so I just got through the Niyamas, and it's a half-hour episode. So my next episode, I will see how far I get, and we'll continue on with the 8 limbs. So for those of you who are interested, I have 2 offerings for you. One is I'm going to India for 2 weeks in June. I do have some openings for conscious individuals who would like to join me, and you will be learning lessons in yoga therapy, immersed in Ayurveda, yogic diet, which is anti-inflammatory. We have a private chef. I rented out the whole shala, so you have a private room. We also have my martial arts teacher coming to teach us an ancient Indian form of martial arts. And then I'll be teaching asana, breath work, and we're going to be having chanting almost every evening. And you're going to be in the support of a wonderful community that is interested in so many different healing arts. So, can you go to India on your own? Of course you can. I did. But what makes this special is that I have put together a program of some of the best teachers I've ever met that are highly qualified and skilled, with also a sense of community and connectedness. The people that I surround myself with are conscious individuals, and I have accumulated a lot of tools to be able to put on a miraculous experience for people where they go inward and they figure things out about themselves, and I watch their lives change. So that's why people sign up and do my stuff. And I freely give this information. I talk so much on my podcast about all these wonderful techniques. I give stuff away for free. So I have a very generous spirit. That's how I am as a teacher. I don't like keep anything in my back pocket. If you're here to show up as a student, I will teach you. So if you're interested in that, you do have to have an interview, because if I'm spending 2 weeks with you in India, we need to get to know each other. So you can reach out, Erin at erincoach.com. I am also opening up my coach school. That is happening in October. So if you've been wanting to do coach school, we do have a discounted rate of $39.99 if you sign up before June 1st. So I think that's it. Thank you so much, everybody, and have a fantastic week, and namaste. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to support the podcast and if it's helping you, please consider writing a review. You can go to iTunes or Google Play, go into the search bar and type in Thrive Yoga Fit Transformational Coaching, scroll down, and you can leave a review. This helps other people to find me, as well as bumps us up in the search ratings. Also, this podcast is sponsor-free, so that means we don't receive anything for doing it. If you feel so inclined and this podcast is helping to support you and you want to return the favor and help to support any production costs of the podcast, feel free to give a donation to a Venmo link, Thrive Yoga Fit, or PayPal, Erin at erincoach.com. If you don't have the means, don't worry about it. We're not going anywhere. You're all good. But if you would like to give back, you can give back in those ways. Thank you so much. Namaste.